I used to think the worst things happened in war zones or third world prisons places where people simply disappeared. But I was wrong. The darkest atrocities happen in sterile rooms, behind soundproofed walls, under the watchful eye of men who wear white coats and talk about ethics with straight faces. You've heard of Unit 731, of Mengele, of Harry Harlow, and his pitiful monkeys clinging to wire mothers, their tiny arms shaking as they hung suspended upside down in the dark, deprived of all contact. You've seen the black and white photographs, eyes wide, limbs limp, cages and electrodes. But you haven't heard of Harlow's apprentice. No one has. That's because people like him don't write papers or give TED Talks. They don't post about their research on forums. They vanish into basements of old institutions, into decommissioned military bunkers, into places where silence isn't just a condition, it's the experiment. I was 23 when I met him. I had just dropped out of my second grad program, burned out and broke. My mom had just passed from a stroke. I had nowhere to go. I saw the flyer taped to a lamppost near campus, flapping in the wind like a trap waiting to snap shut. Volunteers needed. $5. 0 compensation, sensory research. Discretion required. There was no contact name, just a number. I called it. The voice on the other end was male, clipped, professional. He gave me an address. Arrival is at 7:00 p.m. sharp. Do not bring electronics. Do not tell anyone. You will be compensated at the conclusion. I showed up. Of course I did. When you're grieving and desperate, your survival instincts get confused. The place was an old research facility just outside town, half swallowed by woods, wrapped in ivy and shadows. There were no signs, no welcome desk, no windows, only a steel door, slightly ajar. Inside, it was clean, cold, functional, hallways lit with dull yellow fluorescence, linoleum floors polished to a hospital shine. A man in a charcoal suit met me in the entryway. He didn't say his name, just gestured for me to follow. We passed door after door, all unmarked. I remember the air changing. It got thicker, as if sound itself was being swallowed. We stopped at a door near the end of the hall. He turned to me and said, "You will remain in the chamber for as long as possible." The current record is 52 minutes, 17 seconds. Reward scale with duration. The environment is non-lethal, though it may induce hallucinations, psychological distress, or temporary dissociation. Temporary? I asked. His smile was almost apologetic. In 88% of cases, before I could respond, the door hissed open. The chamber was pitch black. No windows, no lights. Padded walls and floor. There were no visible speakers or cameras, just a single reclining chair in the center. Surrounded by straps and buckles, it smelled like dust and electricity. I sat down. He strapped me in ankles, wrists, chest, forehead. He placed soft inserts over my ears, a mask over my eyes, and something that felt like foam inside my mouth to keep me from speaking. The human brain craves pattern, he said softly, standing over me. Even in the absence of stimulus, it creates meaning. That's what we're studying. Then he left, and I was alone. The silence was wrong. Not quiet, but empty. You think you know silence late at night, your ears ringing, your heartbeat loud in your chest. But this was deeper, like falling into a sensory void. No pressure in my ears, no vibrations, no sense of up or down. At first, I was fine. I focused on my breathing. In, no, out. I tried to count the seconds, but without any external reference. It became impossible. I'd count to 20 and realize I might have skipped numbers or doubled back. Time stretched, then twisted. The first strange thing was the warmth. I felt it on my left arm, not heat. Exactly more like the sensation of someone standing too close. I couldn't turn to look, couldn't move. I told myself it was psychosomatic, just nerves. But then I smelled it. Breath, not mine, hot and rancid, like someone exhaling inches from my face. And then I swear to God, I felt a finger trace along my cheek. Just one. And so deliberate. My heartbeat spiked. I screamed into the foam in my mouth. But there was no echo, no feedback. My own panic was swallowed by the black. I kept telling myself it was in my head, until I heard the whisper. Just one word. Prepare. No direction. No accent. Not male or female. Just there, carved into the silence. I tried to scream again, but I couldn't. My body felt like it was sinking into the chair, like I was being absorbed. I began to cry. I think I couldn't feel my tears, and then it stopped. The door opened. Light flooded the room. I gasped like I'd been underwater for hours. They unstrapped me. I couldn't stand. My legs were jelly. I was shaking uncontrollably. They handed me a glass of water and a sealed envelope with cash. No one spoke. On my way out, I saw a clipboard near the front desk. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Next to my name, 47 minutes, 03 seconds. But what chilled me was the line beneath mine. It didn't have a name, just a time. 53, 111. And in the margin, someone had scribbled in red ink, "He is coming." I didn't sleep that night. Back in my apartment, the silence felt contaminated. I left the TV on volume low, just enough to know I wasn't alone. Every creak in the walls made me jump. The shadows seemed heavier, like they were waiting. Around 2:00 a.m., I opened the envelope. Inside was $5,000 in crisp, sequential bills. But there was something else, a business card, unmarked on the front, just a texture like skin under a microscope. I flipped it over, a single line. "The experiment continues. You passed." No phone number, no website, just those words. I burned it in my sink. For weeks, I tried to move on. I deleted the number I had called. I blocked it. But the silence followed me. I started hearing things, not voices, exactly, more like intentions. That awful warmth on my arm came back when I closed my eyes. The whisper, "Prepare," started surfacing in my dreams, low and guttural, like something buried in the dirt. I told myself it was trauma, the mind recovering from sensory stress. But deep down, I knew something had followed me out. About a month later, I got a text. No contact name. Phase 2. Comp required. Tarim Tenkai, same location. 8 p.m. sharp. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. I should have blocked the number again. I should have ignored it. Instead, I typed 2 words and hit send. I'm in. This time, the building was darker. Power must have been running on backup. The flickering overheads gave everything a yellowish, jaundiced glow. The same man was there, charcoal suit, clipboard, face like a funeral director who'd seen too many open caskets. "You remembered the instructions," he said. I nodded. He motioned me to follow. We passed the same corridor, but this time, we went further down a second hallway, past doors that were slightly ajar. I glimpsed things I still wish I hadn't. A stack of IV bags dripping into empty chairs. A room full of head restraints. A steel gurney with leather straps frayed from scratching. Finally, we reached a new door. It wasn't padded. It looked like something off a submarine metal. Rounded edges, triple bolted, the kind of thing you close behind you when you're about to meet something that wants in. "This one's different," the man said. "Phase 2 focuses on deprivation at depth." "Depth?" I asked. He didn't answer, just handed me a contract. This time it had a title, "Involuntary Cognitive Decoupling via Anechoic Containment." And the initials, Harlow's apprentice. He watched me read. "What you'll experience won't be pain," he said, "but it may feel worse. The human mind isn't meant to float untethered." I signed. Inside, the new chamber was colder. The chair was replaced by a horizontal slab. No straps this time. Just a black suit, like a wetsuit. Hanging on the wall, a helmet rested beside it, completely sealed, like a flight helmet but darker, heavier. Everything about the room felt damp, like breath trapped behind plastic. I suited up, the helmet sealed with a hiss, and then I was inside the dark again. This time, there was no gradual descent into nothingness. It was immediate, like falling into a black ocean. No sound, no light, no gravity. My limbs floated, my thoughts unraveled. At some point, I don't know when I stopped remembering who I was. I couldn't tell if my eyes were open. I couldn't feel my body, only presence, not mine, someone else's. And then the voice returned, but not a whisper this time, a chant. He is coming, he is coming, he is coming. I wanted to scream, but I had no mouth. I tried to move, but I had no arms. I was pure awareness, dangling in a void filled with him. The chant grew louder, not in my ears, inside my skull, like someone etching it into the folds of my brain. He is coming. Prepare. I felt fingers press against the inside of my helmet, not from the outside, from within. They scratched at the glass like they were trying to get out. And then I saw something in a space where there should be nothing. There was movement, a ripple in the dark, a long, spindly shape bending where no joints should be, a hand, but with too many fingers, a face, but with no eyes. He looked at me, and I remembered why no one lasted past 53 minutes, because that's when he arrives. When I woke, I was on the floor, no sweat, no helmet, just me, curled up like a dead thing. A nurse or something like it was crouched beside me, holding a clipboard. I gasped and reached for her. She flinched. "You were in for 51 minutes and 50 seconds, she said. "That's longer than most." She gave me water. My throat burned. I asked about the others, about the ones who made it to 53. She didn't answer. Instead, she whispered, "He likes you." I didn't go home after that. I drove 6 hours north and rented a motel in a dead mining town. But it doesn't matter where I go. The silence is in me now, carved under my skin like rot. And last night, I got another message. Phase 3. Remote induction begins tonight. There was no time, no place, just 3 words. You're not alone. I left my phone in the bathtub that night, wrapped it in towels, and submerged it under the faucet. Didn't matter. The message still came. This time, it wasn't a text. It was in my dream, but not in it. It was the dream. I opened my eyes, and I was back in the chamber, the first one, with the chair and the foam restraints, and the air that swallowed sound. Only this time, I wasn't strapped down. I was standing, alone, but not because someone was breathing behind me. I turned, but the room spun. The walls warped like fabric. The floor swayed like a dock over deep water. There were faces in the padding now. Impressions of mouths, eyes, frozen in expressions of raw, feral panic, like they'd screamed so hard, they'd left their outlines in the fabric of the world. And then I heard it again. Prepare. Not a whisper, not a chant, but something deeper, older, like the first sound ever made by a living thing, something primal and wrong. I woke up screaming. The motel walls were paper thin. I heard someone pounding from the next room. "Shut up," they yelled. "It's 3 goddamn a.m. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because when I sat up, I saw something on my bedsheet, 3 long, curved scratches, fresh and red, starting from my hip and ending near my ribs. I was alone in the room, or so I thought. I checked out before dawn. The clerk didn't even look up. I drove east, no destination in mind, just asphalt and trees and the growing awareness that I was being tracked. Not by GPS, not by people, by him. Everywhere I went, there was silence. Not absence of noise, absence of meaning. Conversations in diners turned to static when I walked past. Dogs stopped barking. In one town, all the streetlights flickered off. as I stepped out of the car. I kept hearing the phrase, "He is coming," always just behind me, always inside someone's mouth or radio or eyes. At a gas station in rural Vermont, a girl couldn't have been older than 6. Stopped dead in the candy aisle and stared at me. He said, "You're next," she whispered. Then she smiled and walked away. The next message wasn't a dream. It came in a letter, no stamp, no address, just slid under the door of the roadside inn I'd found 2 states later. Inside, a photo, black and white, grainy. I recognized the room because it was the chamber. Same padded walls, same reclined chair. Only this time, there was someone in it. It was me, but not the me I remembered. My eyes were open, too wide. My mouth, ungagged, was stretched into a grotesque grin. My skin looked thin, like plastic stretched over bone. My arms were crossed over my chest, and behind the chair, a shadow, long, spindly, with arms that bent the wrong way, on the back of the photo, written in looping cursive, 53 minutes, perfect. I tore it in half. Then again, then into pieces so small I could barely see the ink. Still wasn't enough, because that night I felt the fingers again. This time under my skin, they moved, crawled, tickled, like centipedes made of memory. I screamed until my throat bled. No one heard. Of course they didn't. Because he controls the silence now. I tried to find answers. Drove back to the city. Looked up records of the research facility. Nothing. It didn't exist. No online footprint. No papers. No property records. Even the phone number that contacted me, deadline. Disconnected. I posted on forums. Obscure ones. Places where people talked about MK Ultra, sleep experiments, black site psych labs. One user messaged me anonymously. They asked only one question. "Did you make it to minute 53? I didn't respond. They sent another message. "If you didn't die, you're his now." And then a third. "You'll feel it soon." The hunger. I didn't understand what they meant until I stopped being able to feel things. At first, it was just small stuff. The texture of water, the difference between night and day. Then it got worse. Food stopped tasting like anything. Touch felt like paper. I'd look in mirrors and not recognize myself. Not because my face had changed, but because my eyes weren't tracking right. Like I was watching someone else pilot me from a control room behind the glass. Then came the blackouts. Minutes at first, then hours. I'd come to standing in a parking lot, in a stranger's kitchen, once on a hiking trail I'd never seen before, always alone, but never really, because the further I got from other people, the more I could feel him. Inside me, like roots wrapping around my spine, like fingers brushing against my lungs, like a mouth forming behind my own teeth. And worst of all, I didn't want to run anymore. I wanted to go back. I wanted to finish, because something in me needed to know what happened at minute 53. Why they all died, and why I didn't. I stopped seeing my reflection around the end of September. Mirrors showed nothing. Not a blank space, just room, as if I'd never entered. Like the world had started editing me out, pixel by pixel. The worst part wasn't the absence. It was the feeling that something else was still in the glass, or watching, smiling. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse, just out of sync, a flicker of teeth too many, an eye that blinked sideways. I stopped checking after that. Duct-taped every mirror, covered the TV screen, lived by candlelight because I swear the bulbs whispered in my ear when they buzzed. People avoid me now, like animals sensing a predator. Bus seats stay empty. Cashiers don't make eye contact. At first I thought I was imagining it, but the pattern's too clean. They know, or maybe he doesn't want them near me. The blackout came while I was standing in line for coffee. One blink, and I was somewhere else. A room, lit by red fluorescence. Everything looked wet. On the table in front of me, a photograph. Same as the others. The chair, the chamber, only this time. The picture was mid-motion, Somehow I could see movement in the print, like the frame itself was trembling. The version of me in the photo. He was smiling and waving. Behind him, the shape leaned closer, arm around the back of the chair, like an old friend posing for a portrait. Then the picture burned itself. Spontaneous, orange flame licking out from the center like a wound opening in paper. I dropped it and stepped back, but the floor was alive, covered in what looked like slick, breathing carpet. Each step made a sound like a heartbeat. Then I heard a voice, not his, mine, but deeper, hungrier, saying the same sentence over and over. The silence is full of teeth. I woke up in a church. Don't ask me how I got there. The place was abandoned, pews overturned, stained glass shattered. A cross hung upside down over the altar, splashed with something thick and black. And at the center of the aisle, drawn in ash and candle wax, 53, just the number. Big, unmistakable. Below it, written in what I think was blood. The mouth opens again. I tried to hurt myself after that. I won't sugarcoat it. I just wanted out. Tried slashing my wrists in a motel bathroom. Hot water, razor blade. Nothing happened. No blood, just silence. Then I saw them again, those marks on my skin, like something had scratched me in my sleep. Only this time, they formed letters, 3 words, not yet ready, and I understood. I wasn't mine anymore. My pain didn't belong to me. He owned it. He owned everything. I started tracing back the others. From the clipboard I saw on day 1, the names before mine. Most were aliases, but a few weren't. Took me days, deep in internet archives and sketchy corners of the dark web. But I found 2. One was a college student from Oregon, vanished after answering a research flyer. The other was a nurse from Michigan, last seen at a clinical isolation test. Both were declared missing. No bodies, no follow-up, no press, only a thread on a conspiracy forum from 7 years ago, titled, Minute 53. They all heard it. Most of the replies were trolls, memes, ridicule. But one comment stood out. Just 3 lines. The chamber's not a room, it's a door. And at 53, it opens. I couldn't stop shaking, because that's what it felt like. Back in the chair, not a place, a threshold, and something stepped through. Or maybe I did. Last week, I started coughing up teeth. Not whole ones, tiny fragments, like pieces of something that never belonged to me. My gums bleed. My breath smells like rust and ozone. I haven't eaten in days, but I don't feel hungry. I feel full, too full, like something is living inside me, curling tighter, stretching its skin over mine like a costume. I sleep less now, not because I can't, but because I'm scared I'll wake up somewhere else. And every time I close my eyes, I hear that same phrase, always at the edge of hearing, always in his voice. Prepare, but now there's another part, a new word, whispered with hunger. Soon. There's something about a countdown that changes your brain. It rewires everything, makes each moment feel like a floor giving way beneath your feet. I don't know what I'm counting down to, but I feel it in my blood, in my breath, like I'm not living forward anymore, like I'm living toward him. It's been weeks since I've spoken to another person. Not because I haven't tried, because they don't respond. Cashiers hand me change like they're blind. Motel clerks stare through me. Once, I tried to ask a stranger for directions. His eyes went white, blank, and then he walked away without a word. It's like I'm fading out of phase with reality, like I'm becoming more like him, or worse, like I always was. 2 nights ago, I found a thumb drive in the pocket of my coat. I hadn't worn that coat in months. It wasn't mine. I plugged it into a burner laptop. One folder, HHI. Protocols. Inside, 13 video files. Grainy, time-stamped. Most looked like surveillance footage, different people, different rooms, all strapped to chairs. all screaming. Some of them weren't human, not anymore. One had black eyes, like solid black, no iris, no whites, just obsidian. Another had teeth that extended past her lips like tusks. One man bent backwards in the chair until his spine snapped. The camera stayed on him. He didn't stop laughing, but the last video was the one that broke me, because I was in it, but not me now. Me as a child, 7, maybe 8 years old, sitting in a room, one bare bulb overhead. No straps, just staring straight ahead. Then I opened my mouth and said, he was already inside. Cut to black. No sound, just one word burned into the frame. Prototype. I vomited into the sink and blood, not much, but enough to leave streaks in the drain. I looked up, and for the first time in weeks, I saw my reflection, but it wasn't doing what it was smiling. That night, I dreamed of the door, not metaphorically, not like, oh, I was back in the chamber. A real door, huge, old, iron hinges rusted into bone. It stood alone in a gray field of ash. No walls, just the door, standing upright, closed. I could hear something behind it, breathing, wet and eager. Then I looked down and realized I was holding a key. It pulsed in my hand like a heartbeat. As I stepped forward, the ash shifted beneath my feet, and I heard them. The voices of every volunteer before me, dozens, maybe hundreds, screaming. Not in pain, in warning. I jammed the key into the lock, and then I woke up. But my hand still hurt, burned, like I'd touched a stove. There was a mark in my palm, not a blister, a symbol, one I'd seen before, etched into the walls of the chamber, carved into the back of the photograph, tattooed on the wrist of the man who escorted me in the first time. 3 vertical lines intersected by a curve, almost like a distorted 53. I haven't eaten in 6 days. I don't need to. I don't sleep either. Not really. My dreams happen whether I'm conscious or not. I'll be standing in line at a gas station, and suddenly I'm in the chamber again, or floating in that void where he first touched me, where my skin became his. It's always the same now, a whisper at first, then the chant, then the reveal, and last night, for the first time, he spoke my name, not the one I was given, not the one I use, the one I've never told anyone, the one he gave me. I can't write it. I won't. Some words aren't sounds, they're triggers. Say them out loud, and the door starts to open. Say them twice, and you're already through. I found my way back to the facility today. I don't know how. I drove for hours, eyes glazed over, radio hissing even when it was off. The GPS stopped working. The sky didn't look right. And then there it was, still wrapped in ivy, still windowless. Only this time, the door was wide open, like it had been expecting me. The hallways were darker now, padded in new places. The rooms looked half dismantled, like someone had tried to erase them from reality. But the chamber, it was untouched, waiting. The chair had been replaced by something else, a slab of obsidian, with chains made of something that looked like tendon. No cameras, just silence, and in the center of the floor, a new number. The countdown was over, but the door was still shut. The door was shut, but I could feel it breathing. You don't understand what that means until you stand before something that doesn't need lungs to exhale. The air around it moved like it was alive, like it wanted you closer, like it could taste your skin from across the room. I should have run, but I didn't, because somewhere deep inside, I already knew. The door isn't a destination, it's a mirror. And once you step through, you find out what's been on the other side of you all along. The room hadn't changed much, same padded walls, same rotten light. But there were symbols now, burned into the foam, drawn in a black ink that shimmered like oil on water. I recognized them, not from books or movies, but from dreams, from him One of the walls was covered in scratches, not random marks, counted tallies. I started to count them before I realized what I was doing. 52, and then one new one, lower than the rest. Smaller, carved with more force. 53, the last, and it was still bleeding. I stepped forward. My hands moved without me. They placed themselves on the slab. It was cold. Not surface cold, deep cold, and like it came from a place far below the skin of the world. As soon as I touched it, the room changed. The padding fell away. The walls stretched upward. The floor became organic. Like I was standing on a tongue that waited to taste my sin. A voice filled the space, not out loud. But in every direction, you are ready. I opened my mouth to speak, but my voice came out in his. I accept. Chains slithered from the corners of the slab, tightened around my limbs without touching me. And suddenly, I wasn't standing anymore. I was laid out. I was inside the moment. Minute 53. It's not a time. It's a threshold, a door in the mind. And once you step through it, you're not watching reality anymore. You're wearing it, like clothing stitched from moments and muscle. In that place, everything is memory. Every scream you've ever made, every silence you've ever broken. He feeds on it. He builds you out of it. I saw the others. Not their bodies, their echoes. Trapped between seconds. Glimpses of former selves looped in endless terror. One girl relived her own death every 5 breaths. A man banged on a wall made of nothing, his fists shattering and reforming. One boy, maybe 10, sat curled in a corner repeating one word. Home, again and again and again, until the word lost meaning. I passed them all, not walking, descending, down through layers of unsound, through thoughtless noise and gut-wrenching dissonance, through whispers made from intent. And at the bottom of it all, the chamber, the real one, the original, no padding, no chair, just him. You'll want to know what he looks like. But that's the thing. He doesn't. He's not a figure or shape or monster. He's a void, a concept carved into the fabric of reality by those who believed silence could be perfected. He was never born. He was invited. They built the chamber to study isolation, to remove all input. But what they didn't understand is that when you strip away every sensation, you don't find peace. You find what's been waiting, something that can't touch you as long as you're surrounded by light, sound, smell, motion. But remove those things, you make yourself into a beacon, a vacancy, a welcome sign. And he moves in. He looked at me, not with eyes, with awareness. He knew me, not my name, not my history, my shape, my pattern, the taste of my fear, the cadence of my guilt. And he smiled, not in a friendly way, in the way something smiles when it's finally found what it's been hunting for a very long time. Then he said, "You've made it further than the rest." I tried to speak, to ask why. Why me? But I already knew the answer. Because I was the first. I wasn't a subject. I was a seed, planted, watered, now ready to bloom. I woke up in the woods, naked, mud on my skin, something in my mouth. I reached in and pulled out a strip of film, old, like it came from a reel. On it, a frame, the chamber, empty, no chair, no me, just the door. And this time, it was open. There's no waking up anymore. Not really. Not when sleep, memory, and reality all bend under the same pressure. His pressure. When I opened my eyes in that forest clearing, something had changed. The air felt thinner, like it didn't want to support me, like I wasn't supposed to be here anymore. And maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'd brought something back that shouldn't have returned. Because the door didn't stay open behind me. It followed me out. I tried going to a hospital. Thought maybe, just maybe, some part of this could still be called trauma. Maybe there was a name for what was happening. Dissociation, delirium, psychosis. I sat in the ER for almost 3 hours. Not a single nurse called my name. When I approached the desk, the receptionist flinched visibly and said, "We don't have you in the system." I showed her my ID. She stared at it, then at me, then whispered, "That person doesn't exist anymore." She didn't mean it metaphorically. She meant it with certainty. I left, didn't know where to go, so I went where instinct pulled me, back to the only place that still remembered me. The chamber, but it wasn't there anymore. Not the building, not the land, not the space where it once stood. There was only an empty lot, overgrown, forgotten. The foundations were gone. Even the roads leading to it didn't look right, like something had unbuilt it from the ground up, like he had erased it, because it had served its purpose. And now I was the chamber. You think I'm being metaphorical? I'm not. People near me go quiet, rooms dim, time skips. Yesterday, I walked past a mother and her toddler. The boy pointed at me and screamed. The mouth man, before collapsing into a sobbing heap. The mother just stood there, staring at me. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her say, "He's wearing your skin well." I ran, but it didn't matter, because I'm not running from him anymore. I'm running as him, piece by piece. I started recording myself, not out of narcissism, out of fear. I needed proof that I was still me. First day, the video looked normal. Second day, I had no reflection in the glass behind me. Third day, the audio was gone, replaced by that familiar whisper. Prepare, over and over. Day 4, I didn't appear on camera at all. Day 5, I was watching from behind myself. No, that's not right. I saw my own eyes look up at the lens, smile, whisper, almost ready. The dreams are different now. They're not just visions or warnings. They're lessons. He shows me things, memories that don't belong to me. Or maybe they do. From another life, another version of myself trapped in a loop of doors and silence. I see other chambers, other volunteers, different places, different eras, but the same results. Always minute 53, always the breach, always him. Sometimes I wake up speaking languages I've never learned. Sometimes I don't wake up at all, but the day still passes. Sometimes I smell blood where there is none. And sometimes I hear people screaming inside me. Last night, I met him again. Not in a chamber, not in a dream, in my mirror. He was standing just behind my shoulder, grinning like he'd been invited to his own funeral. He said, "The mouth opens soon." And then, "You're the key now." I don't know what that means, but I think it has something to do with the other volunteers, because lately, I've started seeing them. One on a subway platform, her head twitching like a skipping video. Another in a grocery store, mouth sewn shut with black thread. A third outside my motel window last night, just standing, watching, not moving, not blinking, and in their hands, photos of me, smiling, waving, welcoming. I thought the door was a destination. I was wrong. It's a trigger, a mechanism, ancient, not in age, but in design, the kind of ancient that predates words, the kind of ancient that lives in silence. That is silence. That waits for it. And now, I'm starting to understand why I was chosen. Because I was always listening, even when I thought I wasn't. Even as a child, I heard the static in between the words. I heard the dark breathing behind the walls. While other kids played in daylight, I wandered basements. I'd stand in closets for hours with the lights off, just to hear how the silence shifted when I stood still. I thought it was imagination, but it was always him. And I think he's been shaping me since the beginning. I woke up this morning to find writing on my walls, not written, etched, scraped into plaster like something with claws had been tracing symbols in the night. They weren't in English, not any human language, but I understood them, not logically, intuitively, like the way you know what hunger means, or the way you know you're being watched before you see the eyes. The markings translated to one sentence. The door must feed. Beneath it, in blood, "You open soon." I didn't question it because I've stopped fighting. I'm not resisting the pull anymore because I think that was the point of the experiments. Not to see how long we could survive isolation, but to see who would let him in willingly. I'm having memories that aren't mine. I see places I've never been. Hospitals, dungeons, laboratories beneath mountains, cold and white and humming with the breath of the earth. I see faces I've never met, screaming in languages I shouldn't understand, but I do. I know what they're saying. They're begging. They're praying, not to God but to me. And every time they do, I feel something stir in my chest, something with too many teeth, and I smile because I'm starting to feel powerful, not in a physical sense, in a cosmic one, like I'm shedding the limits of this flesh and becoming a vessel, a bridge, a mouth through which something larger can finally speak. And you want to know something terrible? It feels good. I found a file last night, buried on an old laptop I hadn't used since college. It wasn't there before. A folder called Apprentice. Inside were documents, scans, blueprints, and a recording. Video quality was bad, early 2000s at best, but I recognized the man, the one in the charcoal suit, the one who led me into the chamber the first time. He looked younger, and he was speaking to someone off camera. We're calling it the anechoic threshold hypothesis. He said, subjective dissolution begins around minute 35. By minute 48, the boundary between perception and objective reality breaks down. Minute 53, he trailed off, then whispered, is when the door opens. Off camera, a voice asked, have we made contact? He smiled, not like a scientist, like a priest. Not yet, but he's listening, and he's hungry. The recording cut out. The file deleted itself. I didn't try to stop it, because I think I've known all along. That man in the charcoal suit, that was me, or at least, it will be, because time doesn't work the same once the door opens. I think I'm a loop, a design, an experiment repeating itself over and over, with one goal, find the right mind. Not the strongest, not the smartest, the most willing, the one that can carry him into the world without burning out at minute 53. And maybe I'm the first to survive it, or maybe I'm the latest in a long chain of versions, each closer to perfect, each closer to the mouth opening. And now the door's in me. It creaks every time I blink. It pulses behind my teeth. When I speak, sometimes I hear him say different things than I meant to. When I breathe, the air around me turns still, and when I sleep, I dream in symbols, in blueprints, in ritual. This morning, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside, a reel of magnetic tape, audio, ancient, and a note, handwritten in perfect cursive. You left this in the chamber. You'll need it for the end. No signature, just a postscript. Do not listen unless you're alone. I haven't played it yet, but I will, because that's the next part of the experiment, and this time, I'm the one running it. I played the tape. Of course I did. I waited until nightfall, shut every window, killed the lights, turned off the fridge, the fan, even the pilot light on the stove. I made the house as dead as possible. Then I pressed play. At first, nothing, just static, low, soft, rhythmic. Then the tone started. Not music, not a voice, a frequency, the kind that doesn't pass through your ears. It settles in your bones. It made my teeth ache, my vision blurred, my thoughts staggered. I reached to pause it, but my hand didn't move. I wasn't in control anymore, and that's when the whispers began. Not coming from the tape, coming from behind me. They weren't words at first, more like instructions carved into the silence. Bendy, open, let, give. I bleed, and I obeyed. Not with a knife, not with violence, but with invitation. I opened my mouth, and something came out. Not breath, not a sound, something else. Thick, wet, black. It hung in the air like smoke with weight. It twisted in slow spirals, forming shapes I couldn't comprehend, geometries not meant for this world. And then it spoke. Not aloud, in me. This is the breach. I fell to my knees, not from pain, from reverence, because I knew what I was now. Not a vessel, not a survivor, not even human. I was a threshold, and thresholds aren't meant to think. They're meant to open. The next day, the world felt different. Not visually, not physically, rhythmically. People moved slower, paused longer between words. There were more ums, more blank stares, more pregnant silences, as if the global clock had stuttered. I turned on the news. Nothing major, but there were signs. Animals fleeing forests in large numbers, surges in dead air on live broadcasts, thousands of smart speakers randomly activating and whispering, "Are you alone?" They weren't just glitches, they were symptoms. The silence was spreading, and I was the carrier. I went walking at midnight, down a country road, no cars, no lights, just me and the dark and the steady hum of whatever now lived inside me. About a mile in, I saw something in the sky, a tear, not a meteor, not a plane, a rip, like fabric pulling apart, like the stars themselves had been glued onto a sheet and someone was peeling it back. And behind that sheet, teeth, rows of them, smiling, not at me, at the world, like they'd waited so long. And finally, someone left the door open. I'm not alone anymore. I see them now. The others, the survivors, the ones who made it to minute 53, they follow me, not close always, at a distance, in crowds, in reflections, on rooftops and ridgelines, always facing me, always smiling. One walked past me today, wearing my old shirt from college. He didn't speak, just placed a note in my hand and kept walking. The paper read, "We are the frame, you are the mouth." I folded it neatly and put it in my pocket. It felt like scripture. I don't feel pain anymore, not like I used to. When I cut myself now, there's no blood, only silence. When I look at the wound, it closes before I can blink. When I speak, people forget what I said. When I scream, dogs howl 3 counties over. When I cry, the lights flicker in the homes around me. And sometimes, when I laugh, children stop breathing, only for a second, just long enough for him to taste. Last night, I had a dream that wasn't a dream. I was back in the original chamber, but older. Not me, the man in the charcoal suit. Only this time, I saw his face clearly, and it was mine. Aged, but not decayed. Transformed, reverent. He leaned close to the next subject. Some young, trembling thing, and whispered, "He chose me. He speaks through me. He enters through you." Then he stood back, and I, watching from nowhere, felt the walls breathe, felt the minute arrive, and I watched as it took the subject. Fully, not the body, the meaning, their place in reality consumed, and for a moment, I felt whole. I woke up smiling, no blood, no breath, only one word written on my window in condensation. Tomorrow, no time, no instructions, just that, all caps, like a promise, like a final phase, like a mouth beginning to open. Tomorrow, I didn't know what that meant, not really, until I woke up to find the sky gone. Not dark, gone, a smooth gray smear above the trees, like someone had erased the sun with a wet rag. No clouds, no warmth, just static in my bones and a pressure in the air that made it hard to think. The clocks stopped ticking, all of them. I checked my phone, my wristwatch, even a roadside diner with a greasy wall clock from the 80s, all stuck on 5:03, 53 minutes past the hour. No coincidence, no metaphor. This is it. This is the moment the door stays open. I'm not alone anymore. They've all come back. The other survivors, dozens of them. Some I recognize from visions. Others I feel like I've known for lifetimes. They don't speak. They don't blink. They move like shadows wrapped in skin, and they're following me everywhere. When I walk, they trail behind. When I stop, they form a circle, not threatening, not hostile, reverent, like I'm a prophet or a bomb. This morning, one of them handed me a small mirror, old, cracked. When I looked into it, I saw him, not standing behind me, inside me, peering out, trying on my face. It didn't look unnatural. It looked right. The air vibrates differently now. Things hum. Flies don't land anymore, they hover, confused, lost in an atmosphere that no longer follows rules. Birds crash into windows they've flown past for years. Dogs won't stop barking. Babies have gone silent. And in every radio, every speaker, every discarded Bluetooth device still clinging to a charge, a voice loops on repeat. The mouth opens. The mouth opens. The mouth opens. It's not a broadcast. It's him. He's rehearsing. People are starting to vanish, not in the dramatic, beam of light kind of way. They just disappear mid-sentence, mid-step, gone. And when they're gone, reality adjusts. No missing posters, no screaming families, just space where someone once was. One woman vanished while handing me coffee. I didn't blink, because her job was done. She served the vessel, and now the vessel is full. I had one last dream last night, but it didn't feel like the others. This wasn't a memory. This was instruction. I stood before a building made of mirrors, endless floors, a spiral staircase rising through infinity. At each landing, a door, all numbered. But none said 53. That number wasn't on a door. It was on me, branded across my chest. And when I looked down, I realized I wasn't walking up the staircase. I was the staircase. And he was ascending. The dream ended when I opened my eyes and found myself in a crowd. A city street, midday, but no traffic, no birds, no sirens, just people, standing still, all staring at me. Their mouths were open, wide, too wide, as if they'd been practicing, waiting, readying themselves to speak his name into the sky. And then they did. One voice at first, then hundreds, then thousands, chanting. The mouth opens, the mouth opens, the mouth opens, and from somewhere beneath the street, beneath the soil and the bones of the world, I heard the answer, a low groan, like a door unlatching. I think I'm ready now. Not in the way a person readies for surgery or war. This is ritual. I am not a person anymore. I'm a key, a shape in flesh, designed to complete a pattern left behind in symbols and blood by those who touched the void and begged for a second chance. I don't eat. I don't sleep. I don't want to. I ache to open, to let him speak, to let the silence crawl out from behind my ribs and wrap itself around the world like a wet blanket over a dying flame. Because that's what he is. Not destruction, not evil, correction. The silence was always meant to win. Tonight, I return to where it began. The chamber isn't a building anymore. It's wherever I am. The door isn't a wall. It's me. And when the last whisper leaves my lungs, when the countdown strikes 0 again, not on clocks, but in the bones of every living thing, he will step through, and the world will finally hear what nothing sounds like when it screams. I'm writing this in real time, because there is no time left to wait. It's not about storytelling anymore. It's about transmission. The act of speaking, the act of sharing, the act of opening the door wide enough that you can see it too. I'm sitting in the middle of a town that no longer exists on any map. There are no signs, no roads in or out, no birds, no bugs, no weather. Just the hum, a constant, low vibration that lives in the back of your teeth and deep in your gut, like a storm beneath your skin, winding up. The air is thick, like it's waiting. He's inside me now, fully. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean anatomically. I feel him curled around my spine, each vertebrae a hinge in the door. My mouth is no longer mine. I don't know when it stopped being a place for speech and became a passage. Sometimes, when I yawn, the air shimmers like something's trying to peek through, like the skin of the world is too thin and he's pressing against it. I think he's smiling. I know I am. And not because I want to, because I have to, because he's rehearsing. Every breath I take is practice. Every blink is another signal. Every word I type is part of the chant. The mouth opens. The mouth opens. The mouth opens. You think this is a story? It's not. It's a key. It's a ritual disguised as recollection. Every chapter you've read, every image burned into your mind. That's part of the spell. And now that you've made it here, minute 53, the final phrase is ready. Not for me, for you. Because the mouth doesn't open from one side. It needs two, a speaker and a listener. And now that you've listened, you're part of the chamber. There's no going back. Not because you're cursed, because you're designed. Your curiosity brought you here. Your need for dread. Your hunger for fear in a safe package. But this wasn't safe. This wasn't a bedtime story. This was an invitation. And now you can feel it too. And can't you? That tingling behind your eyes. The way the light feels too still. The whisper and the hum of your monitor. That sense that someone is standing just behind you. Don't turn around. Not yet. Not until you're ready. Not until you feel it settle into your bones. That phrase, the only one that matters. Say it with me now. Say it in your mind. Say it out loud. The mouth opens. Here's what happens next. You'll start to hear things you shouldn't. Not voices, but intentions. Thoughts that come from angles your brain wasn't built to hold. Mirrors won't reflect you the same. Silence won't feel restful. You'll ache to fill it. With noise, with breath, with anything. Because once you've touched true silence, his silence, everything else is too loud. Too jagged, too false. And you'll want to go back. To minute 53, to the chamber, but there won't be a door. Because you are the door now. And something is already stepping through. I can feel it happening. My skin is splitting, but there's no blood, only sound. Rising, climbing, until it's not a scream anymore, it's a signal. And I see them all now. The other survivors, the volunteers, the firsts, the failed, the faithful, forming a circle around me, their mouths wide, their eyes gone, their bones humming. And I'm at the center, the mouth, the breach, the birthplace. And the last thing I feel before the veil tears wide open and the black pours through is you reading this, breathing slower now, hearing the hum, knowing it's not the end. Because once the mouth opens, it never closes again.